Whose sole desire was only to be left alone.
2 minutes until showtime.
The so-called friend had gone. One day the federal troops showed up and shot his wife and son. It's coming down. It's all around. The New World Order's training armies on our ground. Stormtroopers dressed in black and blue to aim the crosshairs of their guns at me and you. Way down upon a Waco, Texas farm, I saw the lawless law there flex its long lean arm.
1 minute until showtime.
Search warrants could even be served. The ATF shot up the place. Some got what they deserve. It's coming down. It's in your town. The New World Order's training armies on our ground.
And of course, I've been playing that song for you for a long time, and we've been trying to stop that from happening. It is happening now. It is coming up. And I'm Clay Douglas. I'm still standing against it, trying to talk against it, trying to educate you, and let you know that there are answers out there. May not find
Your
them
show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Log Talk Radio.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too.
Now keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys that are listening this morning is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
I'm gonna keep my big V8, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right.
Whatever they did doesn't matter.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is John DeNugent. Hello, John. How are you?
Just fine, thank you. Can you hear me, Clay?
Yes, sir, I can. Yes, sir, I can hear you just fine. John, I'm sorry, sir. Yes, sir?
No, I just want to make sure there's no echo. I'm privileged to be back on your show, and I know you've been talking a lot about the racial problems in America, and I'm really prepared to talk a lot about that. In particular, Robert Whitaker has been a great thinker in the white civil rights cause, and he's come up with something called the mantra to blow away the liberals, and it's pretty exciting, but I found a flaw in it, so I'm eager to talk with you about how white people can prove it's nothing to do with hate, it's nothing to do with supremacism or violence. It's simply white conservationism, white self-preservation, white civil rights, our freedom and human dignity to live in our own country without being killed and genocided. And that's all I stand for.
Well, you know, I just put this up on my blog TV site. I said, you know, I'm Clay Douglas. I'm descended from white Israelites who crossed the Caucasus Mountains, became Germans, German Caucasians. The Germans came to America, settled in Texas, fought for their independence for Mexico, and I was born a Texan. And I'm kind of proud of that. I'm proud to be white. And why is it that a black man can join the NAACP, or a Jew can join the ADL, or JDL, or APAC? A Muslim can go to any mosque anywhere and get down the streets on his knees. Why am I a racist if I join the Aryan nations or the White Supremacy League, for God's sakes, you know? Why?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. Bob Whitaker, as I mentioned earlier, has been a wonderful thinker in the white civil rights cause, and he's come up with this thing called the mantra, and it's very good, because what he says is, if people think immigration, like millions of Mexicans pouring into America, and Chinese and Hindus, and these Hindus and Chinese are taking a lot of middle class and upper class jobs now, not just the picking vegetables, not just, you know, driving garbage trucks and doing some of the manual labor that Mexicans do, but you know, a lot of the high-tech jobs in IT, computer programming, everything are being taken from the white middle class now. And people say, well, but we'll have peace when the whole world is racially mixed and there's no more borders, and we'll all be just one brown soup. Well, in point of fact, I just got an email from a kid in Milford, Pennsylvania. It's the far eastern tip of Pennsylvania. Sticks deep into New Jersey, actually. You can tell he's in New Jersey country, although it's technically Pennsylvania. Ultra-liberal, minority-dominated. And he told me next week my history teacher is going to be hammering us with anti-racism. I wrote this teacher, and I proposed that I come and speak to his class, present another point of view. I wrote this nice, calm letter, email to the guy, and he called the police to investigate my email. I'm a former teacher myself. I'd like to address your class.
Hold on just a second here. Excuse me for just a second here. Let me try to get Truth Radio up here without hearing the interference or commercials or whatever.
We're sorry, your call did not go through. Will you please try your call again? We're sorry, your call did not go through. Will you please try your call again?
I would if I could find it. Yes, I will here. Let me see here. Okay. Let me try that one more time.
Football. Sports come first.
Okay, we won't be broadcasting on Truth Radio today. All right, John, we're recording everywhere else, though. And
okay, great.
This is John DeCamp. You know, I have never, I certainly since I've been publishing the Free American magazine, because I allow viewpoints like yours, mine, you know, to be aired and run across. I'm not hating nobody. I don't care what color you are. I don't really care what religion you are. You know, if you're black, you know, I want to be able to buy my barbecue from you. You know, I'm from Texas, man. I always went down to Stop Six to get to, you know, get my barbecue. So this isn't about being racist. I don't care what color you are, but why should I be ashamed of starting every civilization in the history of the world?
Well, you know, basically, when you look at what these professional so-called anti-racists do, anti-racism just means anti-white. That's one of the things Bob Whitaker says. Anti-racism is a code word for anti-white. And what they are saying is we have to brown out the white race because it's uniquely criminal. And if you look, I used to be a long-term substitute teacher. I taught a lot in several different public school systems. Whenever I was between jobs in the 1980s and 1990s and the 2000s, I worked as a substitute teacher. I was in big demand. Sometimes I'd have 2 or 3 different school systems call me in the morning because I could achieve something a lot of people who think they're cut out to be a substitute teacher can't do. Maintain discipline in the classroom. Walk in there, the kids don't know you, you don't know them, size them up, maintain discipline, and actually teach the lesson plan. So I know kids, and I know what's in the textbooks in these high schools. And when basically what they're saying, and it's shocking, what they are saying is the leftist premise that is inculcated in high school and college. Only the white race is dangerous. Only the white race is supremacist. Only whites therefore need to be assimilated and browned down and mixed in with other races and disappear. Now the blonde hair and the blue eyes, that makes us very, very scary. We're all latent Nazis. We all want to put our boot on the neck of the poor, suffering, dark races. It's genetic. It's in us. And there was a book by a Jew named Michael Bradley that came out in 1978 called The Iceman Inheritance. And it said that white people have violent Neanderthal genes. We're natural racists. We're natural Nazis. We naturally want to conquer the world and enslave the poor, suffering darkies. And we are the #1 source of danger to the world. In other words, it's an actual accusation. The white race has a genetic code to be Nazis. It's shocking, but that is what is being taught.
If somebody, now what you have described here, I actually believe exists. I believe it exists, but it's being used. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. It's being used by the countries like Israel, and they are the ones. It's the ADL, the Southern Poverty Law, that are the real haters out there. They hate us. They hate anybody that's doing anything that's patriotic, anything that's you know, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our Declaration of Independence. That's the foundation of the first basically self-ruled society in the history of we got 6,000 years of tyranny, of people trying to lord over us. We were the slaves. We've been enslaved, the white race, and we broke out. We stopped. And now the Jews are calling us the Nazis when they were the ones that were backing the whole Nazi movement, or a lot of it. Well, I mean, they were making deals to drive people out of Russia, to drive the Jews out. They set up a safe country called Israel, and they are treating the Palestinians worse than the Germans supposedly treated them. You know, we're not even talking about the real war crimes there, like Dresden, against the German people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, there was a book that came out in, I think, in the 1970s by a Jew at Boston University named Howard Zinn, Z-I-N-N, just the Yiddish word for tin. And we got a tinner for the truth. Howard Zinn. It's called People's History of the United States. And when you see this, you get, and this is a classic book taught in college to young people. It basically says blacks and Asians, Jews and Aborigines, especially the poor persecuted Jews, they can stay racially pure because they are no danger to world peace. But white males, you see, you and I are in the double criminal category, Clay, because we're white and male. That makes us, we're really the badasses. white males have been proven by these progressive Jewish historians like Howard Zinn to have oppressed women for millennia and to have holocausted the gays, the blacks, the Jews, and the American Indians. The other races are innocent of wrongdoing, and a famous quote came out in the 1970s from Susan Sontag, the New York Jurist. He said, "The white race is the cancer of history." So what people think who are not aware of what's in the high school and college textbooks, they think these different civil rights movements for blacks and browns and yellows, they're about establishing an equal playing field. No, they are preaching hostility. They are preaching the white race is the cancer of history. And so therefore, any movement for white civil rights, it can't just talk about racial truths or religious truths. It has to talk about historical truths, that whites are not a race of criminals. We have to say, prove women are different from men, and not just in their plumbing. Being gay is not normal, and it's not healthy. It was the Jews who started and ran the modern slave trade, and threw the blacks overboard into the Atlantic Ocean by the millions. Just as Mel Gibson said when he was drunk, openly, you know, Jews have started virtually all modern wars and all the modern economic crashes, recessions, and depressions. And Matt Taibbi's fabulous article in Rolling Stone magazine, he's certainly not a Nazi, he's a quarter Filipino himself, his father's a big reporter for NBC News. Matt Taibbi said Goldman Sachs has caused every economic crash since the 1920s. And he proved Goldman Sachs caused the Great Depression. I mean, it's unbelievable. Just as Mel Gibson said, the Jews have started all our modern wars, all our economic crashes, which have had a devastating effect on people's lives, and they have deserved and brought upon themselves the pogroms and massacres that have happened to them. And the final thing I'll say is the Amerindians who came in from Siberia through Alaska and Canada into what is now the United States, they took the white Solutrean land of the original Native Americans, who were white Europeans who started coming here nearly 20,000 years ago from Europe during the Ice Age. It was the Indians who took the land away from the original whites and massacred and genocide the original white Native Americans.
What was the name? What was the name of that skeleton up in Washington that they discovered? The Indians raised such a so holy hell about it because it was a white man. It was an Anglo-Saxon. It was a Caucasian type. And,
right. There's a little city on the Columbia River on the border between Oregon and Washington State called Kennewick, Kennewick,
yes, the Kennewick.
And right along the riverbank, almost a complete skeleton of this guy from 7,000 BC, a white man from 7,000 BC, was found, and the federal government under Bill Clinton went ballistic about this to seize the skeleton, and they had U.S. Army Corps of Engineers helicopters dump hundreds of tons of gravel on the site, so no more bones and no more evidence could be found. They planted trees over the site to destroy it because they were terrified. They were terrified. The American Indians are terrified, and the Jews who run the casinos. Remember, the American Indians have a special status. They're allowed to have casinos and act as semi-independent nations within the United States because we feel guilty toward them for taking their land. So they can, and the Jews run the casinos and become fabulously wealthy off these casinos. In fact, as part of the stimulus plan that Barack Obama had, an Indian casino in Connecticut got a $50 million stimulus check. A casino got a $50 million, and that just goes into some Jews' pocket. The American Indians don't actually run these casinos. Jews run all these things. So the Jews are very afraid of the truth about Kennewick Man. It ain't just Kennewick Man, though. Older than Kennewick Man, it is a white skeleton from near Mexico City. There are tools and skeletons of white people being found in New Mexico, in Virginia, and at the Meadowcroft Rock Shelter here near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 30 years ago, a hot-tempered, brilliant Italian-American anthropology professor, James Adovazio. He was the director of anthropology at the University of Pittsburgh. It's a great school, University of Pittsburgh, especially engineering and the sciences, because Pittsburgh's a big industrial city. 30 years ago, a farmer named Albert Miller invited him. Said, I found this great big rock shelter out in my land, out in the forest. It's right above a creek. He says, I bet the Indians were using this rock shelter as an encampment, and it was perfect because there was a creek right below, and it's a good, safe, during the wintertime and rain, it's a perfect location. Why don't you come out here and do some digging? I'll bet you'll find something. So James Adovazio went out here in the early 1970s, and he dug and dug, and he found, all kinds of evidence of Indian pottery and bows and arrows, and, when people chop up animals, they throw the bones in the corner and whatnot, and they found bat droppings and bird droppings and water and mud and leaves and all kinds of stuff. Lots of debris. He went down thousands of years through Indian debris, American Indian debris. Indians had been there indeed. But then he found something underneath it. The weapons and all the artifacts changed radically to a different look, indicating a completely different culture was there. First was there before the Indians. And he was shocked, and he published his response. He didn't say it was white people. He said, this is a totally different group. A totally different group. One of the ways you can tell it's a totally different group is this. The Siberians, who became the American Indians, or a big part of the American Indians, the Siberian, the Indians were a multiracial group. There's some American Indians had Jewish-looking noses, Jewish noses. Some of them looked very Chinese or Korean almost. There's clearly some Negro blood in some of the American Indians. A lot of people came to the New World in ancient times.
Well, John, I mean, I can't be a purist about this, because frankly, I don't know who my great-grandmother slept with,
Well, we don't, but we do know this, the white race has created wonderful, so the reason why we're talking right now, for me up here in Pittsburgh and you down there in Arizona, is the internet. White people invented the internet, and the telephone, and the jet, and
I love the 21st century. I love what we've done with the place. This is, I mean, living in the 21st century is a hell of a lot better than living in the first century, and I happen to remember that, so.
Right, reincarnation. But the point is that what Adovazio knew is the kind of spearhead that the American Indians had. They would take an antler, and it's bone, it's just kind of, it's brittle, and they would crack it open a little bit, and they'd insert little micro blades of flint. Can you imagine like you take something and you stick little razor blades along the outside of it. So you've got an antler, a horn. It's sharp anyway, so it's good. It's a spear point. And then you stick in a little flint blade. You crack it open along both sides and stick in little micro blades, like pepper it. Insert little micro, like razor blades along the outside. And you throw that spear, that javelin, or you shoot that arrowhead, and that goes in the enemy and kills it. So that was the Indian technology, an antler with micro blades stuck into the outside. The Solutreans from Europe had another technique, also effective, very, very different. They would take flint, and it was a leaf-shaped flint, a narrow leaf, with very pointy at the top, sort of widens out in the middle and then tapers down at the bottom. And then they would take this flint, they would knap it, K-N-A-P-P, and they would chip away at the edges, razor sharp. You can make a razor sharp stone knife. In fact, the Aztecs and the Mayas, when they would do their human sacrifices on top of their big pyramid-shaped temples, they had an obsidian knife, and you could cut out a man's heart in 4 seconds with it. Stone can be incredibly sharp. If you strike a glancing blow sideways onto the flint, and you chip it, and you can get sharper than a modern steel surgical scalpel. And so what the Solutreans from Europe had was they had a flint spearhead or arrowhead. The American Indians had an antler with tiny little flint blades stuck on the outside. Completely different technology. And Adovazio saw this in the 1970s.
Now,
despite the fact...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry. He was a director of anthropology at the University of Pittsburgh, and had a perfect scientific record. he was assaulted on all sides because that's junk science, and you believe in that white supremacist crap, and you know, where's your evidence, and you're making all this up. He was assaulted. His character was assaulted. His honesty and integrity were assaulted, and he fired back in a great book. And he has powerful friends. He's now the dean of provost of students at Marymount College up in Erie, Pennsylvania. But he had to move on. But he stuck by his guns, and recently a major new book has come out by Dennis Stanford of the Smithsonian Institution, former director of anthropology at the Smithsonian, and Bradley from University of Exeter in England, an expert on flint knapping and making spear and arrows, the world's leading expert. A new book has just come out. I've ordered it from Amazon. Finally come out, saying that 100% white people were here first in North America, 8,000 or 9,000 years before the Indians. What they don't dare say, though, because they just don't have the guts to do so.
Well, by the way,
when
John,
Columbus got here, the whites were gone. Then what happened to the whites if they were the first inhabitants? Well, fellas, somebody must have killed them off because they were having babies like everybody else.
John, I have had
condoms back then.
I have had I've had a job for a little while here, and I haven't really advertised it, and I haven't really been pursuing it. But I'm going to I am going to do that, and I'm going to kind of involve you in on it because I'm the political science department head for Timothy Bible College.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And the Solutrean solution that you are what you're talking about, the Solutreans, they just found, and I believe I sent you a link to this. They just found a knife in Delaware, along with a mammoth tusk off of the coastline. And of course, we know that the water's risen quite a bit, and they say it's been here. You know, it's proof that exactly what you're saying is true. The white man was here. The Solutreans were here. Their technology was here. And I also somehow, while you were talking, I thought of Rockwall, Texas. That's right outside of Dallas. And there's a huge rock wall that runs for miles. That is the equivalent of building the pyramids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very exciting. What they really need to do, and Dennis Stanford of the Smithsonian Institution wanted to do this. I haven't got this new book yet, so I don't know how far along his research has gone. But we know that in the Ice Age, the east coast of the United States was 200 miles further out, because what the glaciers did in the Ice Age, they sucked all the water up into these glaciers. The ocean sank drastically in depth. So there's a gigantic change in the coastline. What Stanford says is, if we can get out there with scuba diving expeditions and go out as far as 200 miles out, we would probably find the remains of Ice Age villages on that coast that's 200 miles further out. It's now deep underwater. But because, you know, when people land, you know, the first place they set up their towns is right on the coast, right where they land and pull their boats ashore. So the early coast of the United States, way the heck out there, that's where you'd find all kinds of Solutrean settlements. Makes perfect sense. And they have also been doing, I know James Adavazio had a scuba diving expedition to the Gulf of Mexico, because Florida was about almost twice as fat in the Ice Age as it is now, twice as wide. In the Gulf of Mexico, they have also been looking for evidence of Solutreans. It's now way out at sea. And that's also true in England and in ancient France and ancient German coast and the ancient Spanish coast. In the Ice Age,